Hi, and welcome back to Annie Talks English. If this is your first time here, I'm Annie, and in this space, we talk not just about learning language, but about learning life, about how words, thoughts, and mindset can shape the world you live in. Today's episode is going to be a little more personal. It's about the quiet kind of wealth. Not just the one in your bank account, but the one in your mind, your heart, and your habits. Because no matter what we chase in life, money, success, recognition, it always starts from one place: the way we think. There was a time I used to wake up already feeling behind. You know that feeling when you check your phone and see everyone doing something, achieving something, becoming someone, and you're just standing still. I used to tell myself, I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. And because I believed that, everything around me seemed to agree. I said no to opportunities, I stayed quiet in conversations, I played small. But then one morning, I don't even know why, I looked at myself in the mirror and asked, what if it's not the world holding me back? What if it's me? That question hit differently. It wasn't loud, it wasn't revolutionary, but it was honest. And that was the first time I realized something powerful, that growth doesn't start with circumstances, it starts with the decision to believe differently. It's strange, isn't it? We often think success belongs to the lucky, the talented, the privileged. But over time, I've learned it belongs to the intentional, to those who train their minds to see possibilities instead of walls. That day, I sat down with my notebook and wrote one sentence that became my anchor. My thoughts create my direction. It sounds simple, but that one idea changed everything for me. Because when you begin to guard your thoughts, you begin to guard your destiny. Every morning after that, instead of reaching for my phone, I'd reach for a thought, something as small as, I am capable, I have value, I am in progress. And slowly, the world outside began to reflect that inner shift. It didn't happen overnight. It was messy. Some days, I believed it. Other days, I had to fake it. But eventually, my mind started to catch on, and that's when my life began to change. Because here's what I learned. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And to become what you desire, you have to first think like that person, feel like that person, act like that person before the world catches up. This is the real beginning of growing rich. Not from a paycheck, but from a decision to stop living in fear and start living in faith, in yourself, in your potential, in the invisible seeds you plant every single day. So if you're listening to this and you feel stuck, if you feel like life keeps repeating the same stories over and over, maybe it's not the story that needs to change. Maybe it's the storyteller. Maybe it's time to rewrite your thoughts. And that's where my journey began. Not in a classroom, not in a seminar, not in a success manual, but in a quiet moment of honesty between me and myself. It was the day I stopped saying I can't and started whispering, maybe I can. After that morning, something inside me shifted. Not dramatically, not like a lightning bolt, but quietly. It felt like waking up from a long sleep I didn't know I was in. I started to notice my thoughts more, the tiny, constant ones that whispered all day long. Maybe it won't work. You're not ready yet. What if you fail? And I began to ask myself, who taught me to think this way? Most of those doubts weren't even mine. They came from what I heard growing up, from people who meant well but were afraid themselves. They taught me to survive, not to dream. And so I realized if I wanted a different life, I had to unlearn fear and teach myself faith. Faith for me isn't about religion. It's about learning to believe before you see. Because every big thing in life starts invisible. Your goals, your future, even your confidence. You can't see it yet, but you can feel it. I remember when I wanted to start this podcast, I had no experience, no fancy equipment, and definitely no audience. I recorded my first episode on a cheap microphone, sitting cross-legged on my bedroom floor, praying no one would hear my neighbors shouting outside. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And I believed, really believed, that if I kept going, if I kept improving, if I kept speaking with honesty, someday my voice would find the people it was meant to reach. That's what discipline is to me. It's not punishment, it's a promise. A promise you keep to your future self. Every day, I chose to believe in a version of myself I couldn't yet prove existed. And honestly, that's hard. It takes courage to act like the person you want to be when the world hasn't caught up yet. But you have to, because the world mirrors your conviction. It responds to your self-image, not your wish, not your words, but your belief. Belief is like a seed. You don't dig it up every morning to see if it's growing. You water it, you protect it, you give it sunlight and space, and eventually, it blooms. There's a quote I love: "What you think about, you bring about." It sounds cliché, but it's true. When your mind is filled with purpose, your energy changes. You start walking differently. You speak with more calm. You stop competing and start creating. There was a time when I'd scroll online and compare myself to everyone else, the ones who had more followers, better jobs, more perfect lives. But then I started asking a different question. What do I already have that I can build on? And that changed everything. Because comparison steals your gratitude, and gratitude is what fuels growth. The moment you start to appreciate what's in your hands, you stop chasing and start expanding. Your energy shifts from scarcity to abundance, and suddenly doors open. That's what belief does. It changes your vibration, your language, your posture. You become magnetic. Not because you're chasing something, but because you've become aligned with it. There will be days when you'll feel like nothing's working, when your progress feels invisible. But remember this: growth happens in silence first, just like seeds break open underground before sprouting. So trust your quiet seasons. They're not empty, they're preparing you. If you're listening right now and you're somewhere between who you were and who you're becoming, I want you to know that's the most sacred place you can be, because it means you're still brave enough to try, still choosing faith over fear. And that's how every miracle begins. There's a moment when belief alone isn't enough anymore. You can feel it, that pull between dreaming and doing. It's like standing on the edge of a cliff, wind brushing your face, and you know it's time to jump. That's how I felt when I realized I'd been waiting for the perfect time to start. Perfect mood, perfect plan, perfect confidence. But perfection never came. So one day, I just pressed record. That was my leap. The funny thing is, once you start, the fear doesn't disappear, it just gets quieter. Because movement creates clarity. You learn what works and what doesn't. You stop being stuck in your thoughts and start trusting your instincts. And soon, every small step you take starts whispering back to you, "See, you can do this." I remember the first time someone messaged me after listening to an episode. They said my words helped them through a hard week. And I just sat there, staring at the message, thinking, this is what I wanted to do. That message wasn't just validation. It was proof that tiny actions matter, that your effort doesn't disappear into the void. It echoes, quietly but powerfully. Sometimes we think success comes from doing something big, but no, it comes from showing up, especially on the days you don't feel like it. That's what builds momentum. Every time you choose discipline over doubt, you're building a bridge between your present and your potential. And one day, you'll look back and realize you've crossed it, step by step, quietly, consistently. There's something deeply beautiful about slow growth. You don't notice it happening day to day, but it's in the way your voice becomes steadier, the way your ideas start connecting more naturally, the way your heart doesn't race as much before you begin. That's not luck. That's practice. That's you turning belief into action. When I first began, I used to script every single line. I was terrified of sounding imperfect. But now, I let the silence breathe. I let emotion lead. Because that's what people connect with. Authenticity, not performance. And you know what I've learned? You don't need to have it all figured out to inspire others. You just need to be real enough to start where you are. Sometimes your voice trembles. Sometimes your plans change. Sometimes your progress feels invisible. But each time you keep going, you're teaching your future self resilience. You're showing that courage isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the voice that whispers, "Try again." So if you're working on something right now, maybe a project, a dream, a new version of yourself, please remember, don't wait for confidence to begin. Begin, and confidence will follow. Because action creates momentum, and momentum builds belief. That's how the cycle works. That's how your dreams start breathing. When I look back, I realized every decision that scared me ended up shaping me the most. Every time I said yes before I felt ready, I grew. And that's what life keeps asking us to move, even if the path isn't clear yet. Because clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing. You know, when I look back now, I realize growth was never about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who I truly was, beneath all the doubt, noise, and fear. Every small step, every sleepless night, every quiet moment of faith, it all led me here, to this version of me who no longer needs to prove, only to live with purpose. Growth doesn't always look loud or impressive. Sometimes it's just you, choosing to believe in yourself again after falling apart. It's you learning to speak kindly to your reflection. It's you realizing that the person you've been waiting to become has been within you all along. There will still be hard days, moments where doubt returns like an old friend knocking on your door. But now you know how to face it, not with fear, but with quiet confidence. You'll breathe, smile, and whisper to yourself, "I've been here before, and I know how to rise." Because you do. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you grow richer, not just in success, but in spirit. You start seeing wealth in gratitude, peace, love, and the simple joy of doing what you're meant to do. And if you're listening right now, I want you to remember this. You don't have to rush. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to keep walking, one honest step at a time. Your dream is not a race. It's a journey, and you're already on it. Thank you for sharing this space with me today. Thank you for letting my words find you, wherever you are. If this episode touched something in you, keep it close. Let it remind you that you're not behind. You're becoming. This is Annie, and you've been listening to Annie Talks English. Until next time, keep growing, keep believing, and keep becoming everything you were meant to be.